Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvina Vadhitamastu ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. A steadfast pursuit is mandatory for Vedanta sadhana. How to control the mind in this vexing world? For example, one cannot meditate often after reading even a newspaper. The news are quite agonizing. So you cannot meditate after reading newspaper. So don't read, what else can we say? Or read newspaper after meditation. Or you read newspaper with a detached mind. For your information, what's happening in different parts of the world, it will not be agonizing if we do not connect ourselves with them. So, but otherwise, best is to avoid. Do all your prayers, meditation, etc., and then, if you need to, then you can. Because it's true that for meditation, for prayer, we require a mind free from disturbance. And therefore it's best to start that before any activity even. You find time for prayers, for meditation before starting any activity. And newspaper is, if you cannot be very neutral about them. A friend of mine used to say, so my father watching news on the TV in the evening, something happened in Australia, he gets excited, in the US, So that can happen. If you have opinion about everything, and expect that things should happen according to your view, then it becomes agonizing. If you don't have view, then it's all right. What Australia should do, what United States do, what somebody else should do. If you do not insist upon that, then you can watch, you can read the newspaper. Otherwise, it is disturbing. What is happening, if you connect yourself in some way or the other, that's all the news that comes even in the front page of the newspaper. Somebody was killed, somebody was raped, these are all the kind of things that they give. So, if you are likely to be disturbed or agonized by this kind of thing, it is best that you complete your routine and then you have to read this stuff. Best is not to read if it gets disturbed. Agonizing means better not to read, but or try to be detached, as much detached as you can from what's happening. Please explain in detail Drishya, Darshana, Darshaka, Drashta. Darshaka and Drashta are not different. Darshaka, one who is seeing. Drashta also means a seer. So there is a triputi. Drashta, Drishya, Darshanam. If you want the fourth, then there is Drishti. Drashta, Drishya, Darshanam, and the knowledge takes place, Drishti if you want, or Drashta, Drishya, Darshanam. So, the Aham Vritti is a Drashta. The I, Ahankara, can be Karta, Bhokta, or Pramada. One of these three roles the Ahankara I can take. One is the Karta, performer of various actions. Bhokta, experiencer of various experiences. And then Pramata or Jnata or the knower. So I become the knower when I contact the world of objects through my organs of perception and mind. So organs of perception that I have are the means given to me to perceive things. So I can be called perceiver or knower. Perceiver requires a means of perception, such as right now, you are the perceivers of these words. We require the means of knowledge, namely the organ of hearing. So organ of perception, usually the means of perception. You are the perceiver, and what you perceive is called perceived. A perceiver, perceived, means of perception, and then perception, the hearing that takes place. So hearer, the words that are heard, the organ of hearing, the means with which you hear, and finally as a result of this, hearing takes place. So these four are involved in every interaction. This is at the level of the organ of perception. The organ of action, right now for example, I am a Vakta. The means of that is the organ of speech. Who is producer of the words for the organ of speech? And you are the listeners of these words. So this is how usually the transaction takes place. So now what do you mean by Vistara said? You want to understand so what greater detail do you want in this? The question is, please explain Drashta, Drishya, Darshanam in detail. So Drashta is with reference to the organ of perception called eyes. At every level of organ of perception, Shrota, Shravanam, Shrotavya, Sprashta, Sparshanam, Sprushya. Subject, object, and the interaction between the two. So what more do you wish to know? Aham vritti and ahankara of antahkarana are the same? Yes. Aham vritti is the I notion. All the vrittis, the thoughts that we have, can be divided in two categories: the subject thought and the object thought. our thoughts also can be classified in two categories. Subject thought based on I or aham vritti. Rest of thoughts are called object thought. Like perception, like memory, manaha, buddhi, like determination. So manaha, buddhi, chittam. Manaha is thinking or determining pros and cons. Buddhi, determination. Chittam, remembrance or memory. And any other thought. If these do not include every thought, then all other thoughts are called the idam thoughts or the object thoughts. And the one who is aware of those thoughts. So in ourselves there are two entities. One are the various thoughts going on, and within ourselves also there is someone who is aware of those thoughts. Who is aware of the thoughts is the aham vritti, ahankara, the subject. And what I am aware of, the object, thoughts. So aham vritti and ahankara are the same. Vritti means a state of mind. Vritti means a state of mind. Aham vritti is when the mind takes the form of aham, the individual. Idam is when the mind takes the form of idam, the object. So when the mind takes the form of subject, aham vritti, when the mind takes the form of object, idam vritti. So is that adequate explanation or? One minute. Oh, right, okay, no further. Kashmiri Shaivism, similar to Advaita, what are the shortcomings when compared to Advaita? I don't know, I must admit my ignorance about Kashmiri Shaivism. So, I have not studied Kashmiri Shaivism. I am basically utilitarian, meaning that I only study what is required. I don't have general interest in knowing things, etc. So there are many things that one should know. The scholars know a lot of things. Shaddarsanacharya. There are acharyas, I am sure there are many in Rishikesh itself. Do you know about Shaddarsana? Nyaya, Vaisheshika, Sankhya, Yoga, Purvamimamsa, Uttarmimamsa. Someone like me knows these things to the extent that is required for understanding Vedanta. That's all. So whatever Bhashyakara brings up in explaining a passage of the Upanishad or scripture, Bhashyakara creates the Purva-paksha. He may present the view of Sankhya, of Mimamsaka, and sometimes Bauddha, etc. So Purva Mimamsa, Sankhya, and Nyaya and Vaisheshika are not different, so Vaisheshika. These views Bhashyakara presents to clarify the understanding of Advaita. Even Bhashyakara also does not discuss these for the sake of discussing them. He discusses them when it is relevant to understanding a certain statement of the scripture. The reason why these other views are brought up is to give us a clarity of understanding given thing from different standpoints. So how do the Sankhyas think about a given standpoint? Sankhyas say that Atmas are many. There are as many Atmas as the embodiments are. There are countless embodiments of different species in the universe. According to them, there are as many Atmas. We ask them, why? Why do you need to accept the multiplicity of Atma? You see, if Atma is one, then if you are happy, then everybody should be happy. If your Atma and my Atma is one, if I am happy, you should be happy. Is it not so? Atma is one. If one is doing something, others also should. So we find everybody different. I am happy, somebody is unhappy, somebody is born, somebody is dying, everybody is different. How can all this diversity be explained if Atma is one? Tell me. Therefore, Atma is many. How many? As many living beings are there, that many Atmas are there. Simple, isn't it? Then how does Vedanta say Atma is one? How can it be? The Sankhyas ask this question. If Atma is one, then what one feels is what everybody should feel. Then how can I? But here each one feels differently. So how do you explain? Atma being one, how can you explain people feeling differently? Can you explain? Huh? That's right. So Sukha, Dukkha, etc. all belong to the mind. In each case, Atma is just the witness illuminator. Sukha, Dukkha, they are all the vrittis, the thoughts of the mind. Therefore, to have the variety in the form of pleasure and pain, you do not need many Atmas, you need many minds. That's how Vedanta explains. You have to explain everything. See, every system should be able to explain everything. Meaning that every system should be, whether it is Nyaya, Vaisheshika, Sankhya, Yoga, Mimamsa, they all claim to explain the life. Otherwise, that system will not be accepted. So everyone claims to explain life. And Vedanta finds fault with each of them. That with your assumptions or understanding, you can't explain this, you can't explain that. And Vedanta claims that we can explain everything. And nobody can challenge that. That is why Vedanta is the darshanam or the system that is most accepted. We Vedantins are quite practical people. So they realize that what each one of them says is Sankhya, Yoga, Vaisheshika, Nyaya, there is a lot of useful things in what they say. So we don't throw a baby along with bathwater, meaning that we don't dismiss them completely. Some parts are those which we don't agree with. The rest of them we accept because you can't start from square one. If you don't accept the Sankhya, then you will start again from Sattva, Rajastana. They've already done that thinking, so you don't have to reinvent the wheel, they call it. Or start from square one. You don't have to. So Mimamsaka, Sankhya, Yoga, they have done great work. A lot of thinking they have done. A lot of beautiful ideas and principles they have discovered. So Vedanta does not reinvent the wheel. It accepts all those things. The only thing that we have problem with is their vision of truth. That is where we differ. So each one has something to say about the Vyavahara. Each one of them has to say something about the truth. Then that is where we differ. With Sattva, Rajas, Tamas, no problem. With Prakriti, Purusha, we have no problem. With Karma and Karma Phala, no problem. So Mimamsa is all right. Yoga is all right. Sankhya is all right. Vaisheshika is all right. They have done a lot of thinking, a lot of good work. But when they come to the idea of what is the nature of Atma, what is the nature of real, this is very, very different. So, I for myself only study what is required for understanding Vedanta. Not an expert of Mimamsa, not an expert of Jnana, and then you go to this Swami, for all that expertise. I only a utilitarian, know only what is required, that's all. You need certain kind of mind also, which I have a certain kind of mind. It gets confined to this. We want to understand the difference in the three states of human being, not waking dream, namely deep sleep, unconscious person, and a person in coma. In terms of what goes away and what remains in the body in these states. Deep sleep, as we discussed in the class, that mind becomes merged into its cause, which is ignorance. So Vedanta explains that ignorance is the primary cause of all creation. You know how it is? Without ignorance we cannot explain. Because the question is, Swami, why did God create this? And particularly when I have problems with my life, then I want to know, why did He create this? Why did He create me? Why did He create this world? Why did He create all these situations? Vedanta says we don't know. Meaning that we have no answer to the question why. What is happening is what we can analyze. So ignorance is the primary cause of creation. Because there is no reason to create. Why did God create the universe? For what reason? We cannot arrive at any plausible or logical explanation of why the universe is created. What's the cause of universe? Vedanta says ignorance. Ignorance of what? Ignorance of the true nature of myself. What is the true nature of myself? I am Brahman, a whole, complete being. What is ignorance? Ignorance, I who is whole and complete take myself to be incomplete. I take myself to be contrary to what I am. Whereas limitlessness is my nature, I take myself a limited being. Freedom is my nature, I take myself to be bound. Happiness is my nature, I take myself to be unhappy. Why? Why should the one whose nature is happiness, why should that one take himself or herself as unhappy? Why? Any idea or any suggestion? Ignorance. That is very ignorance. This is the safest answer. True. See, ignorance, understand, has two aspects. One is not knowing what the truth is, and second is taking the truth contrary to what it is. In case of myself, not knowing what my true nature is, that I am a whole and complete being, and secondly, taking myself to be contrary to what I am, taking myself incomplete, inadequate, lacking. One, that is the killing part. Simply not knowing may not be a big problem. But knowing the self wrongly, that's the problem. That is why in deep sleep state, we do not know. There is ignorance, all right, but there is no false knowledge. So we are in bliss. As soon as we wake up, all the false knowledge comes. So, yes, ignorance is. So, moment I feel incomplete, I look upon myself incomplete, I cannot accept myself. I cannot be happy with myself. I cannot be comfortable with myself. You know why? Because I like to see myself a perfect being, a complete being. I expect myself to be right all the time, to be happy all the time, successful all the time, complete all the time. That's what I expect myself to be. And when I do not find that, I become upset with myself and then with anybody who comes in my way. So that is how ignorance, which results into the false conclusion about myself, is the cause of any action. It causes desire to become free from lack, want, inadequacy. That desire causes action. So every action has its source in desire. Every desire is a source in sense of inadequacy, incompleteness. The problem is, what about creation? Who created the world? God created the world. Why should God create the world? Creation is an action. Action presupposes a desire. Desire presupposes incompleteness, inadequacy. So is something lacking in God that God desired to create? If there is something lacking in God, He can't be called God. So this is where we begin. That God created the world. Creation is an action. Action presupposes desire. Desire presupposes a need. The need presupposes a lack or a want. Why should God desire to create? Does it make sense? That is why what He has created also doesn't make sense. If cause of creation does not make sense, the effect also would not make sense. But anyway, idea is that it's ignorance which creates false knowledge, which creates desire, which creates action. Why did we discuss this? I don't know. The question is, Difference between deep sleep unconscious person and a person in coma. From that, how did he come to this? Ignorance. Deep sleep, right. In deep sleep there is ignorance, etc. Okay, thank you. Because it begins with deep sleep.
Merges into ignorance, that's right.
An unconscious person. I think doctors can explain it better than I can. So what is the difference between a sleeping person and an unconscious person? I think it's very similar.
Unconsciousness is same as coma. And unconscious or comatose state is state where the person who is in deep sleep cannot be aroused in spite of any painful stimulus also. A person in deep sleep will be aroused by a painful stimulus or any stimulus, but a comatose person will not be aroused even by deepest painful stimuli. This is the definition of the two. Difference between the two, coma and deep sleep.
So it's deep sleep, coma means very deep.
He cannot be aroused by any stimuli.
Oh.
But all his vital functions, prana is there. And if we define from Vedantic point of view, then Pratyabhigna, I don't know whether to call it Pratyabhigna, but a person whose reversible disease, he is having reversible disease and he is cured and he comes out of coma, he does recognize himself that yes, I am Mr. So-and-so. But those who have severe head injury may have temporary memory loss, but then they ultimately they do come out. Very grave injury, they remain comatose and no Pratyabhigna is there, though vegetative state is there. So we can say that Pratyabhigna is there from when a person comes out of coma and recovers, he does recognize that I am so and so, he remembers. Whatever happened during that duration, he will not remember. It is same in sleep also. Whatever happened during that duration, he will not remember.
He does not know, so he cannot remember.
He does not know, so. In either case, he does not know. The difference is in the arousability of the person.
Does that satisfy? What is it? Dementia is a disorder. आपने पूछा है? हाँ.
The question is referring to from Adhyatmic point of view, from the Vedantic point of view. I wanted to know whether Sukshma Sharir or Karan Sharir, what stays and what goes at that time. This definition, and a doctor too. That's why I had put this question to Swamiji, because I wanted to understand from, like in deep state, you say, what part of our mind or body stays with the body and what goes away? That is the question.
Mind doesn't go away. Mind remains in the body. In the sleep also, mind does not go away. Mind just remains inactive. Vedanta says the mind merges into ignorance. Meaning that in deep sleep, mind does not vanish, mind does not depart, mind remains in the body. Even in deep sleep also.
It has got nothing to do with Sukshma Sharir and Karan Sharir and nothing like
Mind means Sukshma Sharir.
Mind is Sukshma Sharir.
Sukshma Sharir, but mind is the most predominant part of Sukshma Sharir. So it involves organs of perception and stuff. But mainly, mind is Sukshma Sharir.
But in coma, I suppose mind is not there during the comatose state.
See, mind is not there, meaning mind is merged into its cause called ignorance. Not that mind ceases to exist.
Yes.
Mind is in a causal state.
Causal.
Right now, the mind is in an active state,
Hmm.
and then in deep sleep and those states, mind merges into its own cause, so it's in causal state. Therefore, it can be aroused to the effect state. So, right now we can call it karya or effect state in which we are. In sleep and such cases, mind merges in its own cause. So, it's not functioning in the sense of perception, action, etc. But then apparently, if mind is required for the functioning of this body, then that little mind may be there. If you need that intelligence for the body to function, breathing and blood circulation, digestion, whatever takes place. If you need mind to do, that kind of mind may be there, but otherwise mind in terms of thinking faculty, perceiving faculty, etc. is not there. It is as much into its own cause.
I think your question also added unconsciousness. With anesthesia, when we give anesthesia, they can be aroused, but coma is kind of...
Anesthesia is different than the unwanted unconsciousness. Anesthesia,
Your question
question
has
can be
two
brought
parts.
back. No, that is from medical point of view. I just wanted from this point of view. And Swamiji, before asking this question, writing it down for you, I discussed among friends and a few doctor friends also, but we couldn't come with a good solution. That's why this question was put here.
So basically, subtle body merges into its cause,
Cause, yes.
which is
That's
ajnanam.
the answer.
When you wake up, it emerges from its cause and becomes active. Any other question? If deep sleep state was not given, what would happen to Vedanta? If there is no deep sleep state even, what will happen to human being? That is what we have to ask first. If we did not have deep sleep, we will go crazy in 2-3 days. Because deep sleep is a state which gives us rest. And then we forget all the problems and everything else. So that retreat is very necessary for us to remain sane. Otherwise, if I am all the time bothered with my problems and I have no way to get out of it, then you have to stone your mind. You do something. People stone their mind so the mind cannot think. Because at some point in time it becomes so difficult to face this mind. The reason why people go into this kind of addictions is because it becomes so difficult to face or confront one's own mind. So what do? You stone it. People may, out of imitating somebody, might want to try, have some kind of sensation, etc. is all right. And maybe that is how you may get, but often addiction comes because you want to escape from yourself. How to escape? Because we just cannot face our mind. Mind becomes a big problem and you can't escape, so you stone it. That's what I think about addictions.
Swamiji, can I add to this? Without sleep, life cannot exist for beyond a certain period of time. The living being cannot exist because all the reparative functions and
Chalu kar, switch.
all the reparative functions and regenerative functions happen only in sleep, which is many of which are not known to science. And there is no living organism, no animal which does not sleep. So it is part of the normal functioning, regardless of the emotional aspect which Swamiji said. They did an experiment where they tried to keep a person awake. After few days, all his body's functions deteriorated and the person could not manage but fall asleep. So biologically also, without sleep a person cannot live longer.
That's a regenerative process also is in sleep, yeah.
Not only Vedanta, but life only won't exist without sleep.
Yeah, his problem is what will happen to Vedanta. What will happen to us? Vedanta comes after we are there.
So we can consider the Anandamaya Kosha and the Karana Sharir equal to the Sushupti.
Say that in the microphone. So, yeah.
Swamiji, can we compare, can we think of the Anandamaya Kosha and the Karana Sharira as the Sushupti state, equal to those two states of Karana and Anandamaya Kosha?
So it is explained. But I do not think so. I do not think that the Karanamaya Sharira or deep sleep is equivalent to Anandamaya Kosha. What do I think? Anandamaya. So now you progress from Anandamaya to Pranamaya, Manomaya, Vijnanamaya. If Anandamaya is like deep sleep, can also be cited as an example of Anandamaya Kosha. In deep sleep there is no consciousness. In Annamaya, you are aware of the Annamaya, Pranamaya, Manomaya, Vijnanamaya. So Anandamaya Kosha cannot be deep sleep. Anandamaya Kosha is the state of Savikalpa Samadhi, when you are experiencing Ananda. You follow? It is still called Kosha because still there is slight ignorance. Of the person experiencing that believes that in a certain way that I am the enjoyer of happiness. And Anandamaya Kosha, Ananda, that even that enjoyer of happiness, Bhoktritvam also doesn't remain. Then you see that you are Ananda. The difference in Anandamaya Kosha and Ananda is, in Anandamaya Kosha, there is a slight awareness that I am the experiencer, I am Bhokta. When you see that I am not Bhokta, I am Ananda. That is the knowledge of Ananda. So even though Anandamaya Kosha is explained in Vedanta as deep sleep state, I personally don't agree with that. Because all of a sudden from the being aware of your body and prana and mind and intellect, all of a sudden Anandamaya Kosha become, it should be better than those states. So at each state the mind is subtler and subtler, and so Anandamaya Kosha should properly be explained as merging into Ananda. So deep sleep is, in my opinion, not an example of Anandamaya Kosha, although that's what is said. When you are awarefully sleeping, that would be called Anandamaya Kosha. Not when you are not aware. But that is what, this is in presence of Swamiji, etc. But the point is, this is my personal opinion, even though Vedantic texts equate deep sleep state with Anandamaya Kosha, I feel that is not deep sleep, it's awareful sleep. Because at every other stage of Anandamaya, Prana, there is awareness. And the subtlety grows from Annamaya to Pranamaya to Manomaya, Vijnanamaya. All of a sudden you become unconscious, Anandamaya. It should not be. Anandamaya is also, you are aware, is subtler than the Vijnanamaya, except that there you have this awareness that you are experiencing Ananda. That is called Anandamaya Kosha.
Is the difference between Manomaya Kosha and Vijnanamaya Kosha just the fact that Manomaya Kosha is connected to the Indriyas and Vijnanamaya Kosha is deliberation on what you've perceived through the Manomaya Kosha? Is that the extent of Vijnanamaya Kosha?
To be, I think, simpler than, again, as I would explain it, I look upon the division of mind or antahkarana as manas and buddhi. I equate manas to the emotional faculty and buddhi to the intellectual or knowing faculty. So feeling faculty is manomaya kosha, the knowing faculty is the vijnanamaya. But vijnanam is subtler than manaha. The knowing is subtler than feeling. In that sense, vijnanamaya kosha is subtler than the manomaya kosha. And subtler you become, more is the extent of the ananda that you experience. Anandamaya kosha is the height of experiencing ananda. And to be then knowing the self is, there is no kosha or ignorance involved there. Right? Some radical opinions you hear, but this is what you can think. And
he also asked whether Karana Sharira can be called as
Sushupti
Sushupti.
is merger of the mind in Karana Sharira. So, Karana Sharira and Sushupti are not too different. Sushupti can be called Karana Sharira, yes. Anandamaya kosha, that was the thing. Can be Anandamaya kosha, I would think that no. Yes.
We say also vritti vikaras are there, like priya, moda, pramoda, vritti. So what you say, it makes sense actually, because there's no vritti vikara in sushupti avastha anyway.
And all koshas are states of awareness, not unawareness. So as I look upon these koshas, they are all categorizing the different complexes that we have. So Annamaya kosha we think as the various complexes arising in me due to identification with the body. Pranamaya kosha is the various complexes, meaning notions about I arising due to identify with prana, then mana, then buddhi, then ananda, and then self. So these five are categorizing different complexes that we have, of which the source is identification with a different aspect of our personality. So personality is divided in this way. So all the complexes means notions about I notions, are also divided into these five categories. Anandamaya kosha, the Vishaya is there in, but where Vishaya have become extremely subtle. Vishaya awareness is there at all the time, but in Anandamaya kosha, the predominance of Ananda, where there is a slight awareness of Vishaya or the subject. Subject-object duality, very slight, it's called Savikalpa Samadhi. Anandamaya kosha is equal to Savikalpa Samadhi. One second. Please speak in the microphone.
If someone doesn't get enough deep sleep, but his tamas is strong enough that he has a lot of sleep with awareness, is still mritti, does it affect his spiritual growth or degradation of body?
Spiritual growth, when you say a lot of tamas is there, is difficult. Spiritual growth takes
Because
place.
he's not getting deep sleep, so the tamas overpowers, so he gets sleep with awareness.
So sleep with awareness, I don't know if it can be called sleep. Sleep means you lose all awareness, that is when there is real, because every awareness causes problem. It's all awareness about myself first of all, that means some complex is there, that means some difficulty is there, some problem is there. So freedom from all complexes is the purpose of deep sleep. Pramata in Sushupti, is it aham or aham vritti? Aham and aham vritti are not different. And in deep sleep, Pramata also is sleeping. These are all the states of the aham vritti only. Aham vritti is a waker, ahankara is a waker, ahankara is a dreamer, ahankara is a sleeper. When ahankara sleeps, he merges into ignorance. That is why there is no awareness, specific awareness. Vishesha jnanam is not there in Vedantic words. Samanya jnanam is there, Vishesha jnanam is not there. That I am so and so is not there. I am remains there. Okay.